Let's begin with Amay. He's a VP of products at Entytle. He's been at the forefront of building a unique data platform just for industrial OEMs. That's why we call Entytle Insights as a purpose-built data platform for industrial OEMs. He literally lives and breathes install-based data every single day. We also have Tom Sturdivant with us. He heads customer success and customer growth for our enterprise customers at Entytle. He's actively involved in install-based selling strategies, and he has quite a few pointers to share today in terms of how you would go about implementing an install-based strategy. Of course, we have Vivek Joshi, who's going to be a first speaker. He's a founder and CEO at Entytle, a tremendous amount of experience working with industrial OEMs across 10, 12 industry subsectors and maybe 50 plus organizations, including quite a few industry leaders across various subsectors. So with that, let me hand over to Vivek. Vivek, it's all yours.
DJ, thank you very much. Folks, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Entitle's industry webinar. Unlike the last event, like DJ said, this is a very specific event today to help you understand how best to maximize the value from the installed base. And this is really about being able to show you specifics on what to go do. So as DJ said, there's a lot of people who've been asking this question, how do you really make money in the install base? And what we thought we'd do is start with a basic question, which is, okay, folks, how many of you really are focusing on the install base, if you may, for the next fiscal year? How big a priority is it for you? It'll be interesting to see that. Clearly, we are biased towards it based on what we see from our customers. And so I'm interested in seeing how that reconciles with what we see in the marketplace today. So with that, what I want to do is go to the point that says, listen, we have a lot of experience in this market, right? We've been now working in this business for a few years. We have a situation where we've worked with about 50 companies plus in the last few years. We get data from so many different customers that we are sitting atop mountains of data, as you may. The companies that you see in the background here and in the backdrop of the screen show you a who's who of industry. You have people like Trillium, like General Electric, like Schlumberger, FL Smith. I mean, the names that you see are mostly well known to the industrial folks. The point is we've had practice, as I said, more than 10,000 hours of practice to do this. And we've become really good at certain things, mostly around data, around analytics, and making sure we are able to share this with our customers. So when I think about where we are in this world today, when I think about who's attending today, the list of folks who registered for this event are really the practitioners, if you may, of the aftermarket or install-based selling, right? So when I think about this webinar, it's really meant for you and for you to kind of benefit from. So I look at those of you on the phone and the webinar today as really on the vanguard of this movement to drive install-based selling. When I think about what's going on in the world, you are going to be squarely in the driver's seat or hot seat, depending how you call it, for driving growth in 2021, because for the most part, we see that's where the big value is going to come from. The problem is you've been armed with what we say pickaxes and shovels are not modern technologies today, right? And so the intent is to be able to provide you with some ideas on how you could kind of make this thing better. The last thing I'd say is, in addition to being able to kind of figure out really who to talk to and what to do, is that you're going to be fighting, it's like fighting the headwinds of the economy, right? You have customers who are changing, you have the expectations changing, experience expectations changing. But I think if I look at the people on the phone and look at all the folks we talk to on our customer base, I don't think there's anybody more equipped to rise to this challenge than those of you who deal with this every day. So when you think about what the world looks like for the next few quarters, I mean, we've clearly gone through the last 7, 8, 9 months of some pretty tough, challenging times. And I think it's clear to me that when I talk to our customers and I talk to industry participants, all the different people that we see in this ecosystem, what we know for a fact is that everybody, all of us, are going to wind up doing more with less, as we say, right? Which means there's going to be a lot of constraints on us. There's going to be a lot of things we need to do differently. And how do we kind of get through this process? So as many of us, some of us have been around the block a couple of times, as we say. So I decided to go back and take a look at historical data. And fortunately, Bain & Company, which is a well-known management consulting firm, put out some research recently that showed how the CapEx spending is changing during these challenging economic times. And the nearest analogy we could find was to the 2008, 2009 timeframe, when, as you can see in this chart, we had a pretty massive drop in terms of the CapEx spend, about 34, 35%. You know, we had a pretty solid growth coming out of it from 2010 to now. And then, of course, already all of us are seeing this. There are clearly some industries that have been pretty hard hit. Some of us, some of you, if you may, depending what end markets you serve, are seeing the impacts of that. But clearly, there's ways to get around it. Now, the other thing we started seeing as we go through this process is that the same folks at Bain did some interesting research saying, so when you start thinking about who generates above average returns, economic returns or shareholder returns, you know, it's actually interesting to see that there's a group of people who are incredibly efficient or incredibly innovative who do it. And what we found out is that a substantial majority of the world we live in are what we call observers, which means they're waiting and watching to see what happens. You know, that's all well and good, but I think it's clear to say, if you look at this chart and look at the line above, that the hypotenuse, if you may, of this triangle, that the potential to really drive above average means you need to kind of do some things which are out of the ordinary, out of your comfort zone. And I think we have the ability to kind of start helping you through this process. So clearly, if it was that easy, everybody would do it, right? And it's not that easy. It is really hard. People just think like install-based selling is make a list of all the people you sold to, take a look at what they've done, and then go do it. The fact of the matter is every one of you has incredible complexity in install base. Your customers are different. Everybody has different operating processes. They have different industry applications, and then so on and so forth. So the duty cycles, if you may, are different. The maintenance practices are different. So how do you really figure that out? You know, it's one thing to do it for one customer. As we say, is the old days. IoT in the old days was about planting a service tech right next to the machine, the motor, the compressor, whatever, see what's going on. Now there are clearly more tools. But those processes that we use to rely on people for are hard to scale up, right? As I say, the industrial world has been built on tribal knowledge, which means people and the knowledge in people's heads. Going forward is going to need to scale up through institutional knowledge. And that's really hard to go do. And the biggest thing to make that work, candidly, as we see this time and time again, is there is no single reliable source of data. I mean, I think the notion of a trusted data platform is so important these days, and having the ability to pull together all this data is so important, right? So when you start thinking about all these processes, all these different things you have to do, it is really, really hard. But our point of view is that it doesn't have to be this way. But there's so much advances, even since the time I started working a long time ago, in terms of technology, in terms of data processes, in terms of the cloud, in terms of analytics, that there is so much of a better opportunity for us today to kind of go back and go solve this problem. So with that, what I want to do is share with you a couple of things, and maybe we'd stop the poll, DJ, if you don't mind, and take a look at the results. It sounds like install-based selling is a top priority for 81% of the participants, which is phenomenal, which is great to see. So with that, what I would like to do is turn the mic over to the two colleagues, Amay and Tom, but Amay is going to first start with kind of sharing with you what the better way means in terms of the things you see on the screen. With that, Amay, over to you.
Thanks, Vivek. So hey, everyone, I'm going to tell you all a little more about the framework, strategies, and tools that you can use to drive an install-based selling strategy. So what we'll do is we'll start with a framework. Very, very simply put, it's a crawl, walk, run framework. Nothing too fancy. It's like a maturity curve. Start from simple, move to complex. But we think about it along three different dimensions. The first dimension is really the type of strategy or the approach that you use as part of your install-based selling strategy. You may start with some simpler reactive approaches. Over time, you want to move to more proactive approaches. Then the second dimension is the data. The type of data or the amount of information that you need to start may not be very large. You can actually do a lot with not that much data. But over time, if you want to drive the most value from your install base, you want to get as much data in the system as possible. And then finally is the capability of your team. Start with one or two individuals, show that you can succeed with an install-based selling strategy, and then finally roll that strategy out across your entire department or group. So let's dive into a few strategies that we've seen that have worked with our customers in the past. There's many more. These are some of the ones that we've seen have been successful. I'm not going to talk through all of them, but if you have questions about any of these in specific, feel free to ask that in the Q&A after. So, starting on the left-hand side, something as simple as a service contract renewal or re-engagement is something really easy to start with, right? Just get your list of service contracts, figure out when the expiration date is, and follow up with your customers right before the expiration date. Not a lot of data required, fairly easy to sell that renewal. Then if we move on to the walk side, we start to make things a little more complex. You can maybe have a slow moving inventory strategy that you could apply, but then you need to figure out, okay, which customers have to the SKU level purchase specific part numbers, and figure out what that list of slow moving inventory is. Or even, try something like service contract new targets. So find new customers that you can sell service contracts to. But in order to do that, you need to understand how much those customers are spending, how much are they spending in service, how much are they spending in parts, and really target the customers that don't have a contract but are spending a lot of money with you and may benefit from a contract. And then finally, at the end, when you're truly running, as we call it, and being proactive, we believe in leveraging the power of advanced analytics, machine learning, and trying to use, say, a predicted parts and service needs. So you can anticipate a parts order, a service order before it happens, nothing like it, and use that prediction. Or use your Amazon or Netflix style of recommendations or recommended items. Now, as you can imagine, both Amazon and Netflix have large volumes of data. And because they have such large volumes of data, they can drive really, really good recommendations. So if you want these advanced analytic approaches to work, you do need to get a little more data, maybe not as much as Amazon and Netflix, but you do need to have more data. And on top of that, you need to have a team with a mindset that's going to be proactive and accept and figure out how to work with these advanced strategies. So if you actually want to go and achieve some of those strategies that we just spoke about, how would you do it, right? And I think this graph does a really good job of explaining the different tools in your tool set. Just to clarify, on the left-hand side, it's ease of implementation. So difficulty of implementation at the bottom, easiest at the top, and then the x-axis, we're showing value increasing. So let's start with your ERP system. All of you probably have an ERP system. ERP systems, first, take a really long time to implement. And second of all, they're not easy to use. So it's not easy to get a lot of value from. They're not designed to be easily used, and they're designed to keep records safe and secure. And then there's your CRM system. Now, your CRM system typically is a cloud-based system, so you can implement it fairly quickly. But at the same time, the value of information in the CRM system is not going to be super valuable for you. And maybe you'll have some good contact information there from your customers, but that's about it. Moving on, if you look at manual work, so this is really your spreadsheets and your Excel work, you can actually do some really interesting one-off projects with Excel and with small amounts of data. So you can get some value there. But over time, Excel can't handle large volumes of data, one. And two, it's not going to be a scalable strategy across your organization. So the next one is, okay, hey, let's build it ourselves. Or maybe let's use a BI tool and see if we can get more insights. Great. But at the end of the day, what we've seen is while an in-house tool or a BI tool can actually create lots of value in some cases, it takes a really, really, really long time to implement. Years sometimes years, and a lot of money too. So is it really worth it? That it's hard to sell that. So we believe that there is a better way. There has to be a better way, and that's why we're here today. We believe the best solution is something that's easy to implement and can create high value. And we call that an installed base data platform. So that's an IBDP in short. So what is an IBDP? Well, an IBDP is a system of intelligence that collects, unifies, and organizes all your customer information from any system that could be there, including your Excel files lying on your desktops, by the way. It pulls all of that information in and creates a single, clean, consolidated view of the customer so that it can serve two primary purposes. The first purpose is, okay, anybody who logs into the system can understand everything they need to about a customer really, really quickly and really, really easily, basically making everybody a trusted customer expert within minutes. The second benefit is it tells you how you can engage with the customer through advanced analytics that we spoke about earlier. So what we really do believe is Yes, there is a better way. It's called an install-based data platform. It's trusted, it's automated, and scalable. And now I'm going to hand it over to Tom, who's going to tell you more about how you can operationalize an IBDP. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, Amay. So having an install-based data platform is a key initial step to growing your install base, but taking full advantage of this requires an organizational commitment to driving change and operationalizing the install-based data platform, thus generating incremental revenue from your install base. From our experience operationalizing an install-based data platform, with over 50 plus organizations, we've learned what it takes to create and sustain this change, which I'll be sharing with you over the next couple minutes, along with a few examples of the success our customers are seeing utilizing an install-based data platform. So a foundational piece of operationalizing an install-based data platform is getting commitment for change throughout the organization. This commitment begins at the sponsors promoting and aligning the organizations to focus on install-based growth. The operationalizing strategy can be anything from moving from reactive to proactive part sales, focusing in on service growth or upgrades. Whatever it is, there needs to be organizational alignment between the three foundational groups that are all taking part in the success of the install-based data platform. In addition to the sponsors, our next group is the enablers or the IT teams. That's often an element that's overlooked when thinking about the success of driving revenue from an install-based data platform. However, there's a key here, and that is that the output of the install-based data platform is only as good as the data that's put in. So ensuring that the IT team is also aligned with the business objectives and requirements is essential to delivering a system that both has the necessary data as well as the trustworthy data that is required to achieve the organizational goals. This then leads to our third foundational group, which is the users. And part of operationalizing an install-based data platform incorporates the actual users of the system to ensure that they are adopting the platform. And then with the data in place, the campaigns are created, and then the direction from the management, the various sales and support teams now must continue to adopt and utilize the install-based data platform to drive incremental install-based growth. So in order to track the success and incremental growth from the install-based data platform, we have a multitude of KPIs and success metrics that we monitor with our customer base, with some of these also being subjective benefits as well. One of the subjective benefits achieved that's often undervalued is actually the visibility into one consolidated install base comprising of all of the previously siloed data sets that significantly increases the efficiency of the sales and the service teams. Another source of value that comes from the install base is the ability to create action through campaigns. As Amay had shown earlier, there are a number of different campaigns that our customers are running. And of course, driving revenue is the ultimate goal of these campaigns. But in addition, there are a number of metrics we track with most of our customers, such as the number of uniquely transacting customers, the average order size, and the wallet share that's received across accounts. But having clearly defined metrics and goals across all of these is a key recipe for success. Typically, how we're tracking these for our customers is comprised of a few different components. Typically, for campaigns, we set revenue goals, both overall, as well as specific targets for the sales reps that they're held accountable to. For the KPIs, we set baselines with our customers and track the change of these metrics over time, as well as focus on areas for improvement, which relates back to the different campaigns that we run. This really allows us then to have a comprehensive view into the ROI that's attained as we farm the install base to create incremental install base growth through these multiple channels. Let's see. All right. So the culmination of utilizing an install-based data platform while having the right people and processes in place is shown here with 4 examples of the success that our customers are having from implementing Entytle. The common theme across most of these customers is that before utilizing an install-based data platform, there wasn't trusted data, and taking action was very difficult at scale. Many of the organizations that we work with are recognizing the value with their install-based data platform within a matter of weeks of going live. This ranges anywhere from complete visibility into the install base to creating multi-million dollars worth of proactive opportunities, as well as closing nearly $500,000 within the first 2 campaigns that they ran. And not only is this growth and ROI achieved early on, but the incremental growth that our customers initially see is also continued as we work with our customer base to continually drive new initiatives utilizing the install-based data platform. So from having operationalized an install-based data platform across a number of organizations and experienced the resulting variations in success that our customers have seen, we've been able to understand multiple different strategies that are working for our customers and those that are not. Those that are successful with an install-based data platform really have 3 things in common. There's a commitment and alignment within the entire organization on the growth strategy. There's clearly defined use cases, and then attached to these use cases, there are performance metrics attached to these that are actively tracked and monitored against. All right, so that wraps up with what I wanted to share. So with that, DJ, I'll pass back to you for our Q&A session.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you so much, all 3 speakers. I think we are on time. This is great. And we'll take a few questions. So folks, those who wish to ask questions, please feel free to use the Q&A. We are getting in a few questions here. Okay, this is a long one, so I'm going to try and read this out. I definitely see the value that a system like this can bring. We already have a system in place, an ERP system in place. It takes years to get started and derive value from it using BI tools. How easy is this platform to get started, and what is the time required to derive value from it? I believe, Amay, this probably is, this is a question for you, because it's talking about I think it's referencing the chart that you showed, which was derived value versus the overall effort that was required. So the distilled question is, how easy is this platform to get started, and how soon can you start seeing results, ROI, and approximate timeline?
Yeah, so I can take that, and Tom, please chime in, because you've been in multiple implementations as well, working with customers. But yeah, so good question. An install-based data platform, from my experience, is actually not that hard to get set up. Yes, you do require, as Tom said, some key stakeholders. Like, you need someone to help you with getting that data from your systems. You may require 1 or 2 subject matter experts to help validate that, okay, hey, this data is correct and this fits my business use cases. But beyond that, an install-based data platform should do all that heavy lifting for you of stitching the data, putting it together, bringing it into your system. That sounds like a lot of work, but from my experience, an install-based data platform can actually do that within as little as 6 weeks, and sometimes even faster. And really, on average, it should only take 8 to 10 weeks to get up and running and going live with an install-based data platform. if on the other question on the ROI, we have seen, as Tom showed earlier on his slides, we have seen customers generate tremendous value. Sometimes 2-3x ROI within 2 to 3 weeks, because there's so much, as I said in my strategies, low-hanging fruit that's lying out there. Simple strategies that you can get started with that can generate tremendous ROI for you and your business. Tom, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, Amay, I think you covered it all.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Amay. Thanks, Tom. This is great. Also, we had a request come in, share the slide deck. I think Vivek answered that. Yep, absolutely. We will go ahead and do that, folks. Just one request though, in case you need the slide deck, just raise a hand, let us know you need the slide deck. Do not share the email ID. It might just go to, it might just be visible to all the speakers, but yep, no harm done. Okay, so Ryan has raised his hand. Bear with me one moment. And I also see a question from Louise Garrison. So I'm just going to go ahead. Ryan, if it's possible for you to, to type out your question, that would be great. If not, then, I'll go ahead and enable your voice so that you can ask the question. So I'll just go ahead and allow you to talk, Ryan, in case you want you wanted to ask something.
DJ, I think he's put a message in the chat, so I think we're good there.
Oh, he has. Okay, perfect, perfect. All right. So let's jump to Louise Garrison's question. I've been struggling to keep our business partners engaged. Any ideas? This could be a question for Tom or for Vivek.
Yeah, maybe why don't I take it? Louise, thank you for raising the question. I think that's a very common situation where we see where, it turns out to be a project. And I think one of the biggest things we've seen is to stop making it a project and becoming part of the daily fabric, if you may, of the operation, is to kind of have one of the points that we made in the presentation early on. It has to be part of your core growth strategy. It has to be part of your core metrics week to week. So for example, we have some of our customers who have been really actively monitoring these things, right? And so one of the companies is this big HVAC company that has done, I think, a fabulous job in doing two things, actually maybe three things. One is really ensuring solid adoption by sharing the metrics with people, by sharing the leaderboard, if you may, and by implicitly the not leaderboard, and then also sharing the wins, right? So who's winning? Who are the people who made strides in terms of using different activities, making or new bookings, new proposals, whatever it could be. And having that become part of the process on your weekly sales calls or internal sales meetings or whatever it might be is the best way we see it. And I know, for example, in the world of channel partners, right? When you have your channel partner meetings, kind of highlight the ones who are actively doing this stuff for you, right? And the ability to start sharing this thing widely is probably the single biggest thing we've seen as a way to kind of get that momentum building, if you may, in getting the business partners engaged, be it on the sales side or channel partner side, or even the service technicians who need to go get involved with this. So hopefully, Louise, that answers your question.
All right. So we have a couple of questions. Thank you for asking that question, Louis. I'm sure others have that question in mind as well. So yeah, anybody else wants to go, please go at it. We are ahead of time, ahead of schedule right now. But I do have some questions which had come in earlier during an interaction with some of the folks who are going to attend. So I'm going to switch to those questions. But in case anybody has any more questions, please feel free to use the Q&A. I think this is interesting, and this again goes to the various tools that we industrial OEMs can use to achieve the end goal. It says our IT team is overloaded. How much time do we need? How much time do they need to invest? And I think this is primarily a question for executing an install-based strategy and versus each of the tools. So probably, Amay, just a recap of what you had gone through, where we can talk about, how much time would be required from an IT team based on the approach that the teams would choose to execute an install-based strategy.
Sure. So yeah, that's a good question. So your IT team really shouldn't require much that much time beyond doing two things. First, they will need to extract that one-time data dump of all the historical information that may take some time, but from our experience, shouldn't take them more than a day, depending on the systems, to extract all of that information, that historical information. And then the second thing that the IT team will really need to do is set up what we call like a Delta data feed or an integration to keep pushing that information to the install-based data platform so it stays up to date. Most IT teams today have a tool like a Talent or some sort of data prep tool that lets you automate this really easily. Or if an IBDP can provide a direct integration with an ERP, but that could take longer. So honestly, it should take 2 to 3 days if everything goes well, maybe a week if longer. But really doesn't require much time from your IT resources, and it can provide tremendous value, as we said, really quickly.
Got it, Amay. I think they were also referring to various strategies. So this is one of the tools, but there might be other tools as well that are that the industrial teams, OEM teams would be exploring. So, for example, if they decide to build something in house, what kind of an overhead should their IT teams expect versus maybe they are implementing a BI tool or a CRM, some form of reporting within a CRM.
Yeah.
What kind of an overhead would their IT teams potentially look at?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So from my experience, if you're going to try to build your own tool, you're going to take at least 2 years. It's not easy. We spend a lot of time building our own tool, and it's taken a long time to get it right. And we have engineers working on this day in and day out. So I would say 2 to 3 years if you're lucky and you want to see anything. If you're going to leverage a BI tool or like a CRM tool, from my experience, it still takes about 6 months at least, 6 months to a year to even get started. But then maintaining that scalability and automation with these is difficult. And so, I think on average, you're at least looking at a year before anything really happens, before users can log in and get value. And, that's honestly, that's too long and you can't wait.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Amay. I think this question came in from, apologies. I'm trying, I'm finding it a bit hard to locate the name of the person, but this came in, through email, and it specifically said, the question itself isn't clear, but I'll try my best to put this across, and maybe either Vivek or Tom could go at it. It basically says, how do industrial OEMs typically engage with predictive strategies? I'm assuming the question meant, how reliable these strategies are, and how do you interpret these strategies or the insights that are provided by these strategies. And I can imagine, folks, that there would be some sort of hesitation, because at the end of the day, there's an algorithm churning these predictive strategies. So probably some examples of how we've done this in the past, and how industrial OEM teams engage with the predictive insights that might shed some light on this for this question.
So DJ, maybe I can take it, and I'm going to answer it in a couple of different ways, folks. So I think the predictive algorithms, if you think at the essentially what they're trying to do is try to mimic human expertise, right? So if there's an experienced engineer or an experienced service technician, she's going to notice that if something happens out in terms of a classic IoT situation where vibration increases on a pump or something happens, there's a failure soon to happen, right? If you think of all those different signals that experienced person is trying to process in his or her brain, and therefore make the interpretation of that to what that might mean in terms of a potential failure situation or maintenance or service situation, predictive algorithms or AI is really trying to mimic that kind of behavior and kind of make that institutional, right? So instead of being locked into some person's brain, is that. And so what the reason I gave that example is that fundamentally what we're trying to do is, in the absence of experts sitting at every customer, we're trying to make sure that the data that we have allows us to add to the best of our capabilities, make that, mimic that kind of translation or interpretation, if you may. So I would say that the predictive stuff is by far not as good as an expert who knows this product or knows a customer or knows the industry and understands all the nuances. But what that predictive algorithm does in a way is narrow down your field of focus to the people and things you ought to care about, while telling you don't worry about the other stuff that is not being surfaced out there. So in many ways, the predictive algorithms in an interesting manner also function as a way to filter out the things you shouldn't focus on. And so that's where we start seeing is that it gives you a pool of things to go look at, and then use that as a data based on how good the data is, how well the accuracy and precision and recall and all those different metrics that the data scientists like to look at, then give you a sense of comfort around, well, is this prediction about, well, maybe let's go talk to this customer about an impeller, or maybe let's go talk to this customer about something else like a gearbox failing or whatever it could be. How good are they, right? So it's a matter of being able to take that knowledge and say, you know what, we're trying to do the next best translation, if you may, or interpretation into this thing. So that's the way I'd seen it. And what we've seen is time and time again is that the operationalizing of these predictive algorithms has 2 or 3 different aspects to it. First and foremost, it requires a confidence on the part of the service and salespeople to say, you know what, I'm going to go contact the customer because if nothing else, I'll learn what's going on there. Secondly, is the ability to be confident about the value proposition you as an OEM bring to that customer. And third thing is being able to therefore convince the customer that the value proposition is as much about preempting and anticipating what might happen in a catastrophic situation, and therefore convincing them to go ahead with this proactive sales or proactive service approach than waiting for a catastrophic failure. So all these things have to come together. And as everybody on the phone knows, it's not easy, right? It's as I like to say, my favorite saying is easy to say, hard to do, right? So that's the way I think it all comes together. So hopefully, DJ, that answers a question that came in via email.
I think it does, Vivek. This is great. So, yep, there are a couple of other requests. You know, some folks would not join and they wanted the presentation. I think we've got that, you know, through the Q&A and through the chat as well. A couple of folks have asked for the presentation. So, as we said, you know, those who have explicitly asked for it will send the PPT. The others would still get the video recording. And I think we can. We're almost at time, and we'll just go with one. You know, one more question if that's okay, and any one of you 3 can you know, can pick this up. This is probably where the rubber meets the road, and they wanted to know a little more about ROI. So maybe, you know, just building a case for install-based selling in general. What kind of ROI, or, you know, what kind of financial results are typically achieved using something such as an install-based data platform?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take this as a way to kind of blend, go to the segue into the next slide as well. So I think the install-based data platform, our return on investment, is really dependent on 2 different things. One is how good are you going to be at operationalizing this information, and how good are you at making sure you can make this work. And the second thing is being able to systematically have the metrics that Tom talked about in one of his slides, which is, you know, the dormant customers, trying to revive the dormant customers, trying to go increase the basket size, and having some very specific use cases, some very specific initiatives to go do it. And we've seen literally, as Tom put one of the examples out there, the packaging machinery company, I mean, they've literally made $500,000 in, I think, Tom, if I remember correctly, 4 months, right? The ROI is out off the charts in terms of the multiple of the original investment. That includes an extra investment they put in on their side to make the data happen, and to the IT investment and so on and so forth. So I would say it really depends on both those things. And as long as you have the alignment up front that we talked about, the do's and don'ts, as long as there's very specific use cases and you measure them and keep doing some fixes and adjustments as you go along, you can see a pretty good return. So hopefully that answers your question as well.
Yep, wonderful. All right, so that's pretty much it. All the questions were back to you.
Yeah, so I think, folks, first of all, thank you very much. As always, we are gratified by the response we get from you. We really appreciate the questions that come in on email, on the chat, on the Q&A in this forum. So we really appreciate this. This is a nascent community. This is a nascent effort, and I think the more we do these sessions, the more we're going to get momentum and traction. So thank you very much for that. We had great response on the first Industry Next 2021 session we did on September 16th. With that, we have the second one coming up December 9th. It's going to follow a very similar format, very crisp and tight